Hello, and welcome back to Red Gaming Tech. My name is Marta. Today is the 15th of October, and I'm here to give you yet more daily gaming news. This time, I'm bringing you some more news on the Xbox One, as Phil Harrison, who is, of course, the Vice President of the Xbox division, has spoken on the Xbox One's performance, more specifically, how it's capable of gradual performance increases over time. And he was saying that these system-side evolutions will help stimulate the console and refresh the market during the latter stages of the Xbox One's lifespan. Now, this was during an interview with MCV, and Phil Harrison said, quote, "The way in which you keep the market fresh is to keep the technology fresh and keep the development ecosystem growing so that new and exciting experiences are coming out. And with Xbox One using the power of the cloud, we can add features, we can add functionality, we can have performance increases over time. I think that will keep the platform very fresh over a long period of time." Now, many industry today believe that the current console cycle, which of course began back in 2005, has outstayed its welcome, and the UK retail market has only grown in 1 month since 2009. Executives at publishers such as Ubisoft say they do not want another 10-year console cycle, something which both Microsoft and Sony have promised. But Harrison does believe that the Xbox One can gradually increase its performance over time due to the whole cloud functionality. Now, Mark Cerny, who is of course the PlayStation 4 system architect, has previously stated that he is unconvinced by cloud-based system performance upgrades. So the two powerhouses in this next-gen console war seem to be in disagreement on the usefulness and the power of the cloud. Now, of course, the PS4 does have cloud included in it, but he's talking about it in the sense of system upgrades. However, Harrison did continue on the issue of digital distribution, as he was unsure how predominant it was going to be over the next 10 years. And he said, quote, "On a macro global scale, the world is clearly moving in a digital direction. It is, I think, an unstoppable, inexorable momentum. We are going to see the world be truly digital, but the Xbox One will quite correctly give people choice. It really depends on where you live. It's my favourite William Gibson quote. The future is already here, it's just not very evenly distributed. If you go to South Korea, the market is entirely digital. The infrastructure they have with broadband is so powerful that there is no physical retail distribution of games. It's going to be a slow evolution, not a revolution." And to be fair, he does kind of have a point with digital distribution. In certain parts of the world, they more than have the infrastructure and internet available to be purely digital, but of course, in other areas of the world, the internet just is not there yet. For example, the UK is fairly limited in its internet capabilities. It's not to say you can't get speedy internet here, because of course you can, but it's not one of the strongest areas in terms of internet. Of course, you've got Sweden, which is probably one of the big powerhouses in terms of internet connection, and as he mentioned, we've got South Korea as well. Now, the thing that you have to keep in mind with this, though, is that if the cloud is used for performance upgrades of the Xbox One, which it most likely will be, as he was saying, as we move steadily towards a digital future, it most likely will not be used for textures. Because unless we see a massive improvement, and I do mean massive, in broadband speeds, and of course overall broadband stability in pretty much every country, or at least the major countries, and with even the slightly smaller countries having pretty good internet speed, but maybe not as good as the big powerhouses or what have you, we just won't see it, because if you have a bad internet connection or a slow internet connection, or if your internet connection goes down, that will mean that that game will be unplayable or will be downgraded to textures that can be run off of the disk. So that's not going to happen anytime soon, I don't think. We're not going to be seeing textures sent over in a cloud streaming service. That's just far too much data to be transferred on the fly like that. It's most likely going to be calculations and things like that, so we won't be seeing any graphics generation going on the cloud, but complex calculations and things like that, well, that might happen, but we'll really have to see on how useful this is actually going to be in terms of performance. It definitely has a lot of possibilities in terms of elongating the lifespan of the Xbox One, and of course making sure that even as the console grows older and we actually move towards the next generation, it's still coming up with new ways and tricks to actually increase its usability and power, as of course both the PS3 and the Xbox 360 are both pretty aged by now, and developers are having to use many tricks to get these games running on them. For example, we've seen lots of issues with the single player Grand Theft Auto 5 with texture pop-in and things like that, and that just gives a pretty nice example of how these consoles are starting to struggle a little bit with these games. So it's going to be an interesting console generation. Personally, I don't want to see another 10-year lifespan either, because we've had a situation now for the last few years where the consoles have been holding back the video games industry a little bit in terms of game development, I mean, because they have to think about, okay, I can't just make sure it runs on some high-end PC with SLI Titans or whatever. They need to make sure that it runs on the consoles that people have in their homes for obvious reasons. So they can't perhaps fully realise their vision. Perhaps if they wanted X graphics or this section or this type of gameplay, or they wanted destructible debris and they wanted buildings to collapse or whatever, but they can't do it to the level that they want, because, well, if they did that, it may not run on what is now quite old hardware. And we've been in that situation for a couple of years now where we can't progress any further because literally every inch of juice is already being squeezed out of the current generation. As I said previously, Grand Theft Auto 5 suffered numerous problems on both the Xbox 360 and PS3 due to the size and complexity of the game. And we saw many issues with it even crashing older Xbox 360 models. And of course, if you got the digital version on the PS3, then you would get major texture pop-in issues. So I personally don't want to see another 10-year lifespan. If the PS4 and Xbox One can upgrade themselves, if you like, then great. But I'm not going to count on that. I just hope that we don't see the same situation in another 10 years when we're just praying for the next generation, because gaming has come to a standstill in terms of the progression made in graphics technology and computing technology, because we are having to run on old hardware. I don't think anyone wants to be back in that situation in another 10 years. But obviously that's quite a ways away, and we won't really know what's going to happen until obviously a few years into the next console generation. I would be curious to hear your thoughts on this, on how you think the cloud could be used on both the PS4 and the Xbox One, whether or not you think there's any real validity to Phil Harrison's claims, and what you would like to see with this console generation. Would you like to see another long lifespan, or would you prefer a shorter one when the aged hardware is actually put on the shelf when it should be? Be curious to hear your thoughts as always. Anyway, that is me done for this video. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.